reputably rubbish, on how Disney could have avoided to make the remakes altogether and still make more money on movies that they have already made. Oh God, you're still going on about this?
Yeah, there's a lot to cover.
Just get it done and move on with your life.
To start off with, we need to go over some basic economic concepts. Supply versus demand. In a nutshell, the more demand that there is for an item, if there's scarcity of that item, the price of that item will go up. Pretty simple to follow. Now let's talk about some history. Back in 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released to movie theaters. Roughly every 7 to 10 years, Disney would re-release their classic films back to theaters. These re-releases to theaters of the classic Disney animated movies is one of the various reasons of why they have stayed in our minds as a culture for so long. This is also the origin of the Disney Vault. In 1975, Sony released the beta. At that time, the higher-end model would sell for $2,295. On the mid-range, they would cost about $2,000. With inflation, today, that is about $11,220. Again, this is just for the device to play the movies and not for the movies themselves, which would be sold separately. Because the majority of families could not afford these devices, this was also the birth of the video rental industry. After testing the waters of a couple of live-action Disney movies, such as Pete's Dragon and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Disney decided to go mainstream with their VHS releases. In 1985, Pinocchio was released to VHS, and at that time was selling for $79.95, or in today's dollars, $225.34. With this price tag, even a lot of the video rental places would not purchase a copy of the tape, so Disney lowered the price to $29.95. Today's dollars, that's still a hefty $84.16, roughly. The VHS copies of these classic Disney movies could have easily saturated the market. Continuing the strategy of the Vault, Disney would periodically release one of their classic animated features to VHS, allow it to be sold for a certain period of time, and then would retract it to put it back in the vault for an additional 7 to 10 years. This allowed Disney to control supply and demand and scarcity of their own product, and thus be able to justify the hefty price tag. Growing up in the 90s, I couldn't tell you how often I heard on TV, "Buy now before it goes back to the Disney Vault." There were also a lot of random factors that went into the effectiveness of the Disney Vault. Roughly every 10 years, a new generation of viewing format would be released. In the 1990s, it was VHS, followed then in the early 2000s by DVD, followed in the 2010s by Blu-ray, and now as of today, streaming services. Each of these new formats would not only give Disney the opportunity to re-release yet another version, but this unplanned obsolescence also gave Disney the ability to justify why somebody should purchase a new version of a copy of the same movie.
Do I really have to ask this question?
Yes, Belle, you do. It's written in your contract.
Fine. If there's multiple versions of the movies already out there, why does a family have to purchase a new copy?
Why, thank you, Belle, for volunteering that question. In a nutshell, kids and technology don't mix. Any format that's on a disc is easily scratched. With VHS, we've all heard tales of people watching the movie so often that the tape itself would break. One of the unfortunate components of having these movies at the children's fingertips was that the parents themselves would become so annoyed with the movie that they would sabotage the copy, forcing the kids to watch something else for a while. Side note, through the manipulation of a small plastic tab on the side of the VHS tape, you could fool the VHS recorder into knowing whether or not it would be able to record over the content of that tape. Usually, any VHS tape that was released by a major studio would have that plastic piece removed, that way the content could not be recorded over. Side note to the side note. It has been confirmed that in a small community in Wisconsin, every year a high school history class would watch Schindler's List. One year the high school seniors figured that as a prank they would figure out which library the history teacher would get the copy from, and they successfully found the VHS copy of Schindler's List. They then edited in some unique content. So when the next class was watching Schindler's List, at one of the more poignant points of the film involving a pink jacket, the movie then spliced over to some hardcore adult entertainment. The history teacher then set a land record for moving from the back of the class to the front of the class to hit the stop button.
Christopher, your viewers do not want to know about this smut.
Coming from the guy who's always saying that Britney Spears should cover up.
As well she should. A woman the caliber of Britney needs not show anything more than a flirtatious ankle.
And yet I'm always catching you watching the toxic music video.
Oh, stuff it and get back to your point.
Fine. Where was I? When Disney ended the Disney Vault officially in 2019, they did themselves a bit of a disservice. They could unofficially reinstate the Disney Vault. By removing the classic Disney movies from Disney Plus temporarily, they could instead increase the amount of content that they did have on the signature edition of the Blu-ray. Not only would this increase general knowledge of overall Disney history, but it would also start to increase an overall interest in these classic films. They could then re-release the classic movies back to theaters, and then bring them back to streaming for a period of time, and then send it back to the Disney Vault. This would not only increase the amount of revenue that Disney could get from movies that they've already made, but they could completely bypass the massive budgets that they need in order to make the remakes. This could also help Disney focus on lesser known movies that have hit cult status. The Great Mouse Detective, Atlantis, even The Emperor's New Groove deserve more love. With their recent acquisitions, Fern Gully would be up for grabs, as is Titan AE, The Pagemaster, and Anastasia, already having a Broadway version, has had a lot of the conversion work already done for it. Disney has quite a catalog that they could use for remakes beyond just these original animated movies. So, dear viewer, I'm curious to hear what movies you think Disney should do as live action remakes. Please leave a comment below, let me know.
Thank you for watching this talkie picture. Please leave a message down below, select the like picture, and subscribe to be a member of our community. Thank you.